Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm going to show you how to use the properties of exponents to simplify an expression, and we are going to look at exponent of 0, negative exponents, and I'm also going to show you guys a couple more examples where we have parentheses with an exponent outside. But this one, example number 16, the one I have on the screen, doesn't have any parentheses, but we do have to simplify using those properties. And the first one I am going to use is the property when you have an exponent of 0. So this here, the w has an exponent of 0. We have to understand that the coefficient, the negative 15, even though it's next to the w, this 15 does not have the exponent of 0 like the w. That negative 15 actually has an exponent of 1, because remember that you are multiplying the negative 15 times the w, so you can separate them by multiplication, and the 15 will have an exponent of 1. And we also have a negative exponent with the u over here, negative 1. But let's go back to the w. For the w, since it has an exponent of 0, this base or this variable will become a 1. Anything to the 0 power other than 0, you cannot have 0 to the 0 power, but anything else, a number or a variable with a 0 exponent will be 1. It equals to 1. So I know that equals to 1. Let me just go over here. And at the same time, I am going to reduce the coefficients. So remember that we have the negative 15 over 5 over here. So I'm looking at those coefficients, and we can reduce by 5. So let's do that first. Let's look at those two coefficients. So we can reduce to negative 3 over 1. And the w turns into 1. So I'm going to multiply this negative 3 by 1 times 1. And the exponent negative 1, the u, the base u with the negative exponent, I need to make that a positive exponent. So I'm going to move that to the bottom of the fraction. Now remember that we also have a u to the third here, but since this is positive, this one's going to stay on the bottom. So I'm going to have u to the third, and I'm going to bring down the u to the positive 1 exponent. So again, remember that these two bases are going to multiply each other. So I'm going to put a times in between right there. And we have to finish the problem because we do have same bases on the bottom and they're multiplying. So the property says when you multiply the same bases, and this is for exponents, when you guys multiply the same bases, you guys keep the base and add the exponents. So we are going to have on the top negative 3 times the 1. That's going to be negative 3. On the bottom, you keep the u. We are multiplying those two u's, so keep the u and you add the exponents. The 3 plus the 1, and that's going to be 4. Now the 1 next to the u, this 1, we don't need it. You can make it invisible. So you do have an invisible 1, but since we already have the u on the bottom, that is your answer, negative 3 over u to the 4th power. The second example that I'm going to show you has a parenthesis on the top of the fraction, and outside we have a negative 3. On the bottom doesn't have parentheses, but we do have bases with exponents and a coefficient of 5. So first, we are going to get rid of the parentheses on the top by multiplying the exponent outside of the parentheses to the ones inside of the parentheses. Now you also have to know that every single number and base or variable, they do have an exponent. We know that this a has a negative 2 exponent, but the 2 has an exponent which is an invisible 1, and the b also has an exponent and it is an invisible 1. So I am going to multiply this exponent negative 3 times every exponent inside of the parentheses, and that's going to be for the top, which is the numerator of the fraction. So here's the fraction line. Keep the bases, so the 2 you keep, and you're going to multiply the negative 3 times the 1. That's going to be negative 3. You guys keep the next base, which is the a, and you guys multiply the negative 3 times the 2, negative 2. That's going to be positive 6. And then you guys keep the next base, b, and you multiply negative 3 times the 1. That's going to be a negative 3. The bottom says the same for now. So we just need to know what we can do on the bottom, and we cannot do anything because we don't have the same bases A and B on the bottom are not the same, and we do not have any negative exponents. Now over here, guys, we have to get rid of those negative exponents. We don't have parentheses anymore, but let's go ahead and move the bases with the negative exponent to the other side of the fraction. So that 2 to the negative 3 will go to the bottom, and the b to the negative 3 will also go to the bottom. So anything that has a positive exponent, they stay where they are. So the a to the 6 on the top, that one stays on the top, a to the 6. The 2 goes up to the bottom, exponent of 3, and you will multiply by the 5. So when you guys put those together, you will multiply. It is not 25 to the third, it's 2 to the third times 5. And then we do have the a squared and the b to the fourth. So let me keep that on the bottom. And we also have to bring down the other b, the one on the top with the negative 3 goes to the bottom. So you guys have b to the third. Also, we are multiplying every single base here. So on the bottom, we can multiply the same base as b's. So we're going to add the exponents. But also, guys, if you look at the a's, we're dividing. We have a fraction, a on the top, a on the bottom. That's division, a to the 6 divided by a to the second power. And also, guys, we have to simplify these two coefficients. So there's a lot of work to do to simplify the fraction. So let's do this first. 2 to the third power. So that's going to be 2 times 2 times 2. And that's going to equal to 8. And 8 to the, 8 times 5. So this equals 8. 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 to the third, times 5. That's going to be 40. So on the bottom of the fraction, I'm going to keep the 40. Then I'm going to look at the a's. So I have an a to the 6, a squared. And the highest exponent is on the top of the fraction. So the trick I show you guys in class is you keep the base where the highest exponent is at. So the a will stay on the top, and you guys are going to subtract the exponents. Biggest exponent minus the smallest one. That's the trick. You keep the base where the highest exponent is at, and then you guys subtract the exponents. Biggest minus the smallest. So 6 minus 4. 6 minus 2 is 4. So you guys put 4 here. And then for the b's, those two bases are on the bottom of the fraction and they're multiplying. So you guys add the exponents and keep the base. So they're on the bottom, keep the base on the bottom, and you guys add 4 plus 3 is 7. So your answer is here. So this example is very similar to the previous one, but if you notice the fraction, everything, all the fraction is inside of the parentheses, and you guys have an exponent outside. So the example before this one, it only had parentheses on the top of the fraction, not on the bottom. But here, you're going to have to multiply this exponent times every single exponent on the top of the fraction, inside of the parentheses, and the bottom. So keep in mind that 2 on the top has an exponent of 1, the x has a 3, y has a 2, and the z has a 1. Invisible 1, and on the bottom the 3 has a 1 and the y has a 1, x has a 4, and z has a negative 2 on the bottom. So I'm going to start multiplying the top. So let's multiply the exponents first. You guys are going to kind of like distribute, but it's not the distribute property. You're just multiplying the exponents. So you guys keep the base, multiply the exponents. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Keep the base of x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Keep the y, there's a base, and then multiply the exponents. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. And the last one is z, and we get negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Then you also have to multiply the bottom exponents by negative 2. Every single exponent you guys are going to multiply. So every time you guys have a big fraction inside of the parentheses and an exponent outside, you have to multiply the top exponents and the bottom exponents. Do not forget the bottom. So you guys keep the base and you multiply the exponents. And then you guys keep the next base, multiply the exponents. That'll be negative 8. Keep the next one, multiply the exponents. That's negative 2. And the last one will be negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So you have to be careful with the signs. Check your signs. Double check when you're multiplying by a negative. We don't have any more parentheses, but we do have negative exponents. So I am looking at all the top of the fraction. Every single base has a negative exponent. So all of that is going to go to the bottom of the fraction. And on the bottom, we have the 3x and y with the negative exponent. And that is going to go to the top of the fraction. So that's how you make those exponents positive. You move them to the other side of the exponent. So I am going to do that right now. So after you move everything to the other side, notice that I took the bottom to the top to the bottom, but we also have this z to the 4th power, and that one has a positive exponent, so you keep that one on the bottom. So now you guys are going to simplify the coefficients. So first I'll do the 3 squared. Remember, that's when you multiply the base by itself 2 times 3 times 3. That's going to be 9. And the bottom is going to be 2 squared, which is 2 times 2, and that's going to be 4. Then I'm going to look at the x's, and the x's, there's one on the top, one on the bottom. You guys keep the base where the highest exponent is at, and you guys are going to subtract the exponents, biggest minus the smallest. 8 minus 6 is 2. And then you guys look at the y's, so y squared divided by y to the 4th. The biggest exponent is on the bottom, so you keep the y on the bottom. And you guys subtract the biggest exponent, 4 minus 2, and that's going to be 2. And for the z's, they are side by side, which means they're multiplying. So you guys keep the c on the bottom, and here you're going to add, because you're multiplying the same bases. You guys add the exponents. 2 plus 4 is 6. So my answer is 9x squared over 4y squared c to the 6. We cannot do anything else because the bases are not the same. 9 over 4 you guys cannot reduce. Alright guys, so that's the video for properties of exponents. If you guys like my videos, you guys can click that like button. Like always guys, if you know someone that needs help with Algebra 1, you can share my YouTube channel. You guys can subscribe, your friends can subscribe, and you can turn on the notifications so you guys know when I make a new video, and you guys can watch the new video when you guys can. So like always, make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.